I'm Steve Price from the Department of Transportation, and I think it's a very good question about authority and responsibility. We have about 10 feet on this side to about 3 feet on this side is where our legal authority begins and ends. As far as what we can bring to the table, we can't act as a lead agency in this endeavor. And I think that Mr. Pretty's comments, I think, were right in line with that statement. But we are certainly willing to participate, as we've said before, in any endeavor that would help alleviate the flooding and keep Highway 1 open. And so we're actually just waiting for a lead agency to come and contact us, and then we'll be willing to participate to the extent that we can within our legal jurisdictional authority.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the efforts that the Caltrans crews have done to date to keep the road safe there. Thank you very much.
Question came up is to ask what the definition would be for lead responsibility. It's a very complicated answer from our perspective, but there's CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, lead agency status. There's also financial lead agency status. And the Department of Transportation, in something like this, would be, under CEQA, a responsible agency. We would be able to comment on anything that happens adjacent or requires us to be a permit approval for. We would not be the ones that would be securing the money or leading any of the cooperative agreements that would be signed, but we would certainly be signatory to any kind of cooperative agreements that the county or Oceano Community Services District would want to become a lead in a project. We could become a signature to contribute, like I said, what our fair share would be within the confines of Highway 1. And again, there's a lot of policy and bureaucratic stuff, and I'm going to try and not get into that at all because it's going to make people start watering in the eyes and getting sleepy. But the bottom line is the department is allowed by law to participate financially to that benefit of the state highway facility. In round numbers, we do things like we count up the traffic delay when the highway is flooded, and we can put a number to that. And that number would be what our financial responsibility could be. We could also add into that things like the fact that we have expended resources to maintain the silt and sediment that comes down and stacks in our right-of-way. If we could do something to then alleviate that silt stacking in our right-of-way, we could participate to that event. So we get to include things like maintenance costs. We get to include things like traffic delay costs. And I think that kind of would help whoever wants to start talking about financial participation, would kind of help them kind of put a round number to that. Now, of course, then I have to put the little asterisk in the footnote to that. That allows us to compete for funding. I would still have to then take that project together and package it and compete. And depending on the amount of money that we're talking about, you're talking about a different competition going on. If we're talking millions, that's a very stiff competition. If we're talking hundreds of thousands, that's a little easier competition. If we're talking less than $100,000, well, that's something that a lot of times the district has discretional authority over, the Caltrans district has discretional authority over, and we have an easier time competing for that type of a project. But again, that competition is basically stacking this project up, if we're trying to contribute funds to it, stacking this project up against all the other projects on state highways in the state of California, and then we take our best shot at that. I don't even want to bother you with how much the state's underfunded. I think we've all heard that before. But I think you can be pretty certain that this district would be very much championing trying to get our fair share of funding if some other agency is willing to take the lead responsibility for the overall project. The things that we would look for a lead agency to do would be to get all the environmental documentation together, all the permits that might be necessary to be obtained. And we would even go so far as to really encourage them to actually do the project, administer the contracts, and come to us for an encroachment permit within our highway right-of-way. And we say that just because a lot of times it's a lot easier to do it that way than to say, all right, downstream property, you do your thing first, and when you're done, let us know, and then we'll award a contract, and the highway will do our thing, and then upstream property owners, you do your thing. It becomes kind of a scheduling nightmare. And so we believe that it's better to have it all as just one comprehensive project. I think that it probably bears a couple seconds talking about why Caltrans finds themselves out there cleaning material out of railroad ditch. We believe that even though sometimes that bears a certain responsibility down the road, that we do try and be as cooperative as we can. And I think by the fact that we went outside of our right of way to clean up the ditch, I think is speaking to that. I have also, the sad pleasure of being held responsible every time I try and do something that is trying to help out by going outside of our right of way in a number of cases. Once you do it, you kind of have to answer why you did it in the first place, and then you're responsible for doing it forevermore. The nice thing about this is it's railroad right of way, and I doubt that the railroad would ever cede responsibility for the right of way to anybody. But I think they would have to be, checked with on that specifically. But we certainly think that, I think by our acts have demonstrated that we are willing to do what can be done within our legal authority.
Thank you, Steve.
Does anybody know what the price or Plaintiff is charging for their clean out? To give us a base to work with and numbers?
First of all, Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate you going the extra mile to clean out the material there. I know the Caltrans crews are dealing with driving up the grade the other day. You've got a landslide there which blocks one of the lanes on Highway 1, so I understand the many faceted things that Caltrans deals with. And your crews have been as responsive, I think, as possible, and we very much appreciate that. So I appreciate it. And you guys are out in the rain and everything, and I know that this is a headache for you as well as the residents of town. So for you and to Dave and all the guys, we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Question?
Yes. Did I understand correctly when you said that there is a possibility that if there's some funds needed to either maintain or clean out the drainage through there, that it's possible that Caltrans could bring something to that along those directions? Or, for example, let's say what happens is it looks like one thing that could help here would be to have a cement culvert between the Highway 1 and the actual drain, and put some kind of guard in front of the drain so it holds back material from clogging the drain. If there's some little construction project like that, or something along those lines, is it possible that there would be some funds that could be contributed by Caltrans?
We would have to show. We'd have to show that there is a benefit to the state highway itself. Sadly, I think I wouldn't be able to really go to Sacramento and say I'm saving resources because I no longer have to maintain a ditch that's outside of our right of way. That's going to be a